Good evening, everyone. Thank you for coming out. It seems like these meetings that we've had have always had weather as part of it. But as you know, in the world of soccer, weather does not affect the game. It doesn't get called off for rain or snow or anything else, and so the meeting goes on. We're really glad to have you here, and thank you all of you that have been participating in the Community Advisory and the Technical Advisory Committee, the official members of the committee, but most importantly from the community at large. That really has helped us understand kind of the goals and the hopes and ambitions for this opportunity. You know, we've been in, it feels like this has been in some ways a long conversation, in some ways a very short conversation, because things are moving very quickly. We now have the state legislature that is meeting, that we have some things that we need to accomplish at the state legislature in order to be able to move this project forward. But I'm sure most of you by now, and you'll get a chance to see some more detail in a little bit, have seen the very ambitious plans for not only, I think, what will be a beautiful stadium, but I think an incredible opportunity for redevelopment of a neighborhood, a shopping mall that has I think, a lot higher and better use and more potential maybe than we've seen it in the 50-plus years that I've been shopping and wandering around in the neighborhood. That is, you know, the key part of it is to weave this into the fabric of our neighborhoods, not to have this just be kind of something that's plopped in there, but really understand how we can use this project to weave our neighborhoods together, to take advantage of the investments that we've made in transportation already between the Green Line and the A Line that will be opening up early this summer. Very excited to be able to maximize that opportunity. And as I've said before, to bring the world's game to the city of St. Paul and to the state of Minnesota. You know, as we look at our community, as we look at the changes of our community, as we look at people that have grown up with soccer as their game, not baseball or hockey. You know, I'm a hockey guy, right? But that's this is an opportunity to, I think, as we try to make sure that we build a community that's inclusive for all. Soccer becomes an incredibly important part of that as well. So we've had some robust conversations, some robust discussions, and we're going to have an opportunity for some questions and answers after the presentations here tonight. As you know, on March 2nd, there was a matter before the City Council on the use agreement that outlined the agreement between the team and the City of St. Paul. You know, the stadium that was presented there, or the views, I think when we were last here, we talked about a stadium that was at least $120 million that would be privately financed by the owners of Minnesota United. That obviously is not a $120 million stadium. It's more expensive than that because I think the team really wants a signature piece for the city of St. Paul to really have this be just an amazing kind of iconic image really going forward in the city of St. Paul. You know, so as we go forward, there's big decisions that need to be made and smaller decisions that need to be made. Dr. McGuire and I were talking about a really important decision, which was what's going to be the team's theme song. I was suggesting Under Pressure from Freddie Mercury and David Bowie. I can just imagine 20,000 people jumping up and down to Under Pressure. We haven't settled that one yet. We're going to continue to work on that one. But more importantly, the real decisions about how to make sure that this is an amenity for the city of St. Paul and for this region, how it spurs the kind of economic development that we really wanted to spur, how it includes the people that have invested in the community already, the business owners that are in the Midway Shopping Center. How do we make sure that there is a place for them in the new development? And how do we open the doors of opportunity for new folks that will be a part of that as well? How do we bring jobs to this neighborhood? How do we really truly make this a transit-oriented development site? All those questions are in process. All of those things are the questions that we're asking, and all of those are the things that we want feedback from you and continuous feedback, reaction to what you'll see here, what you may have already seen as that was unveiled, et cetera. We've had great partnerships in this between members of the City Council, in addition to members of the community, but we've also had great support up at our state legislature, and no bigger supporter and a strong proponent of this project than our great Representative Rena Moran. And at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Rena for some comments. Rena.
Good evening, everyone. Again, my name is Rena Moran, the state legislator in District 65A. And as I was thinking about the stadium, and I do support the stadium, but I wanted to create a forum so that my constituency can also come and meet and discuss the issues or concerns, or just hear the good news about the stadium. And so I'm happy to have the opportunity to partner with our Mayor Coleman, to do this today. And so I just wanted to share with you, and which is really good for me because we're in session, and it's a 10-week session. It's going to go really fast. So to partner, to me, it's just a win-win. So I wanted to just share that, for the 2016 legislative session, there's an ask that's coming from the owner of the soccer stadium. And unlike, so many of the other stadiums, they're not asking us to put in any money into this, right? So that is a win-win. But the ask for us on this land that has been barren for years and years is a property tax exemption for 12 acres of the stadium site. That's an ask for us at the state level. They're also asking for a sale tax exemption on construction material to build the stadium. That's the second ask. And then the third ask that's coming from the city to the state is on-sale license for liquor at the stadium. And so we have had like zero tax base for like almost 30 years in this area. Nothing's there. The land has been barren. We haven't received any tax dollars at all for the land. And I just think this is a great opportunity for our community, for our district, locally. It's an opportunity for members of the community who love soccer to have a space and place to do that right here in St. Paul. And again, it's a really simple ask that doesn't take anything from the state to invest in this initiative. So I'm excited to hear from you. I think there would be a section where we will break out to some table topics conversation, and I really look forward to hearing back from you and how you feel about this initiative and what is your hope for this land as we move forward. So thank you all for coming out today, and I look forward to the conversations. Thank you.
Good evening, everyone. I'm Jonathan Sage-Martinson. I'm the Director of Planning and Economic Development for the City of St. Paul. I'm thankful you're here tonight. I'm happy to be here tonight. This is our third of 4 public meetings around the development of the Snelling-Midway site. And so I'm going to give you a little background on the process to date, the community planning process to date, as well as highlight some of the agreements that the mayor mentioned that the City Council considered on March 2nd. This site in particular is very exciting for me. Prior to working for the City of St. Paul, I worked on something called the Central Corridor Funders Collaborative, which is a group of 12 local and national foundations that work to support equitable development along the Green Line, the 11 miles in St. Paul and Minneapolis. So to be working on such a major redevelopment along the Green Line that helps capture the hopes and dreams as that light rail line was built is pretty exciting, and it's wonderful that it's happening now in the City of St. Paul when there's a lot of energy around this site in particular. So I'm going to start with just an overview of where we are in the planning, the master planning process. So this is part of a master plan that will be developed for the full 35-acre site that will go through this community advisory process, through these public meetings, and eventually be reviewed by the city's planning commission and then the city council. So just brief history. So in October 2015, it was announced that the team had selected the Snelling-Midway site to place the new Major League Soccer stadium for Minnesota United. The idea was to redevelop the full 35-acre site, which includes the acreage that's owned by the Metropolitan Council and the surrounding acreage that's owned by RK Midway, the owner of the Midway Shopping Center. So there was an agreement for the city, the team, and RK Midway to work jointly on this master plan for the full 35 acres. Shortly thereafter, we announced the creation of a community advisory committee, which was appointed by our planning commission. It includes 21 community members, plus the owners of the land, a representative from the Metropolitan Council, from RK Midway, and then a representative from Minnesota United, the developer of the stadium. That group has been meeting since December. They've been meeting roughly every other week to put together, to review previous planning for the site, to lay out principles and goals for the site, and now to begin to review the draft master plan. This is, as I mentioned, the third open house. We had one on November 30th to kick off the planning process. We had another one in January. The feedback from both of those is available on the city's website, which is stpaul.gov/midway. You can see the feedback we received at those open houses. After tonight's open house, there will be a final open house in mid-May before this goes to the Planning Commission for a formal open house and public hearing. So we're about 2/3 of the way through that planning process for the master planning. Will be input for the stadium site plan as well as the full 35 acres. We hit a fairly major milestone on March 2nd. As the mayor mentioned, the city council and the city's Housing and Redevelopment Authority approved 5 agreements between the team and the city and the Met Council related to the stadium. I'm going to talk about those in detail in a second. And the team and the owner of the land to the north, RK Midway, have worked together to initiate an environmental review. An environmental review is required anytime a development of this size is proposed and by state law. And so the environmental review, which is an area-wide urban alternative review, which is just the specific form of the environmental review, is underway. That'll be ongoing and conclude this summer. The process going forward is the environmental review will continue over the next few months, as I mentioned, including a public comment period that will come as we get closer into early summer. The Planning Commission is when the Community Advisory Committee that's now looking at the master plan has done their work. They will send the plan to the city's Planning Commission for review of both the master plan and the stadium site plan. They will hold a public hearing. After that public hearing, they'll pass it on to the City Council. That should happen mid-summer. The City Council review will hold another public hearing and then do a final approval of both the master plan and the site plan. So that's the process, how this goes from an idea back in October to an approved site plan and master plan for the redevelopment. We're happy you're here tonight. We hope you'll come when we announce the specific date for the 4th community open house. I wanted you to know about 2 opportunities, though, to provide comment and track the process in between. The city has a web page devoted to this redevelopment. Again, it's stpaul.gov/midway. If you go there, you can see notes of previous meetings. You can see agendas and presentations. There's also a place to sign up with your email address to receive emails and newsletters as this process progresses over the next few months. At the end of the meeting, we're going to have, we have 8 stations around 8 questions, is that right? Donna, repeated twice, that we're asking you to come give us input on. Those same questions are posted on Open St. Paul, which is our online forum. For those of you who are here tonight or folks who couldn't come, can answer those same questions, give us feedback online. And that's stpaul.gov/open. So you can go there and find these same questions and encourage friends and neighbors to do the same. So there's a couple of ways to provide input as the process goes forward. So briefly, I'm going to give an update on the agreements that the City Council and the city's Housing and Redevelopment Authority approved on March 2nd. And then I'm going to talk lastly about a jobs group that has been formed, as the mayor was talking about, to make sure that we can support businesses who are there today and those who might come as the redevelopment happens. The City Council and the Housing and Redevelopment Authority approved these 5 agreements related to the stadium. And I'm going to walk through each just real briefly so you understand what they mean for the city and the team. The foundational piece here is that you're going to find out in a minute the beautiful plan for the full master plan, which is all the way from University to St. Anthony, from Snelling to Pascal. That's the full 35-acre redevelopment. What's outlined here is what we're referring to as the stadium site. So almost, with few exceptions, the agreements I'm talking about now apply to this portion of the site. They don't apply to the full 35 acres. They apply to this stadium site. So you get a sense of where that sits. So the first thing that was approved is a ground lease, and this ground lease is a document that's negotiated between the city, the St. Paul Port Authority, and the Metropolitan Council for the acreage that's owned by the Metropolitan Council, known as the Bus Barn site. It's a 52-year lease for the ground lease. The payment to the Metropolitan Council is $556,000 per year. That amount, as you'll see in a minute, is being paid by the team to the City of St. Paul. The City of St. Paul is passing that on to the Metropolitan Council for use of that land. And it provides a provision for a sublease of that land for development for development that'll occur in addition to the stadium, and you'll see some pictures of the master plan that show what that might look like. But that's an important provision for the city of St. Paul, so in addition to the stadium, we can see other development there. A second agreement that was agreed to by the City Council is an environmental management agreement. Essentially, this is a cooperation to work in a coordinated way around any environmental cleanup that has to happen at the site. So this is an agreement between the city, the Port Authority, and the Met Council, as well as the team. It will include what we call a response action plan, or essentially the plan to remove any pollutants or to encapsulate any pollutants on the site. And it will also coordinate seeking cleanup grants to remove some of that pollution or to handle some of the pollution. So that's the second agreement the City Council voted on. The third agreement is the development agreement. This is essentially the agreement about the building of the stadium. And so in this agreement, the team agreed to certain things. This is between the city and the team, and the city agreed to certain things. The team agreed to build a stadium that would cost at least $120 million to privately finance that. It will have around 20,000 capacity for the stadium. The team has agreed to pay for the design, the building, and the financing of the stadium privately on their own. Also, under this agreement, the team has agreed to the operations of the stadium, paying for all the maintenance of the stadium, as well as any capital improvements in the future to the stadium. They've also agreed to pay for security inside and outside of the stadium. And they've agreed to workforce, vendor outreach, and a project labor agreement provisions as part of the development agreement. The city agreed to support the legislative asks of the team, and Representative Moran covered these earlier, so just mentioning those again. We agreed to support the seeking of property and sales tax exemption, as well as a liquor license for the stadium. The city also agreed to lead a master planning process for the full 35 acres, so that's what we're part of tonight and have been working on since December. The city and the Port Authority also agreed to $1.5 million, essentially revolving loan fund, to help front some of the costs for any environmental cleanup, and then to seek grants, as we often do from our partners at the state, the federal government, the county, and other places, to do that environmental cleanup. So that's a role the city plays often, and we've agreed to play that here up to $1.5 million. And then finally, the city agreed to a public infrastructure budget to pay for the sewers, the streets, and the plazas in the stadium site. And I'll talk about that in a minute, but again, that's the southern part of the site around the stadium. So another thing that the Housing and Redevelopment Authority agreed to on March 2nd is this public infrastructure budget that I just mentioned. The total budget for public infrastructure is $16.1 million. And as I mentioned, that pays for the public infrastructure, streets and sidewalks, plazas, lighting, sewer and water, storm water, and then parking. And this parking is related to, you'll see in the master plan in a minute, but there's a limited amount of surface parking sort of in the southeast corner of the site. So this would pay for that parking as well. It totals $16.1 million. The source comes from a number of TIF districts that the city has a balance on. That's already money in the city coffers, essentially, that's come from a number of tax increment finance districts that's limited to be spent on public infrastructure and can be spent in this geography. So it's a good match for the source of funds, and it pays for this array of things. Finally, the use agreement. This is essentially the team's and the city's lease for the team's use of the site. Under this agreement, the team agrees to pay the city the exact amount the city owes the Metropolitan Council, so that will be passed through the Metropolitan Council. The team has agreed to public use of the stadium. The team has agreed to manage the stadium and the stadium site. Again, I outlined for you at the beginning what that stadium site is, so they'll manage not only the stadium but also the public plazas and sidewalks around the stadium. They've agreed, as I mentioned, capital improvements and maintenance plans to put those together annually to take care of the stadium into the future. It's agreed under this that any revenue from naming rights for the stadium will accrue to the team to help them pay for the stadium, the ongoing maintenance, etc. I have public use up here again because it's so important. Affordable ticket program is another piece that we heard loud and clear from the community that was important, and the team has agreed to that in this use agreement. They've also agreed to support youth and amateur sports in the region and in the city. They've agreed to post positions at the stadium on workforce websites so that we can help promote local hiring for those positions. They've agreed to do a labor peace agreement for for their vendors, for the concessionaire, and to work with local food vendors, another piece that was important to the community and to our council. And then finally, we agreed to work, the team and the city worked to agree collectively on a parking plan that will look more holistically at parking on the stadium site in the full 35 acres and then in the neighborhood around the stadium as well. And that'll come, around the site, and that will come as a result of a transportation and parking study that the city's engaged through SRF Consulting, which is underway. So that's a brief synopsis of the 5 agreements that the City Council and Housing Redevelopment Authority agreed to on March 2nd. Next up is the master plan, so I won't belay that too much longer, but I did want to touch on this one other piece around the jobs work group that the city has pulled together a number of public and private partners to work on these 4 issues around the master plan, the full 35 acres. So we're there to support business and job retention on the site, to work with any employees that are in transition as the result of businesses moving or closing temporarily or permanently as part of the redevelopment, to work on business and job attraction because we imagine there'll be more jobs. The site is an important job center now, and there'll be more jobs on the site after the redevelopment, and then to promote local employment for construction, for ongoing employment at the site. So that's the goals of this Snelling-Midway Jobs Group. I mentioned it's a public-private partnership that brings together sort of the strengths of a whole set of partners. This is just a handful of those who are involved in that group, which is coordinating resources and able to be ready to provide sort of seamless support for any businesses or employees that need it along the way. So with that part, I'm gonna pause and I'm gonna turn it over to the main part of the show here. And I think John Clifford from S9 Architecture, who's the firm working with RK Midway and the team on the master plan, is gonna give you a look at the master plan.
Good evening. My name is John Clifford from S9 Architecture. I'm going to go over where we are with the master plan now. We've already presented some of the incremental steps so far. So some of this will be a repeat for some people that have been here before, and I think the information more toward the end will be new for everybody. But before I start, I wanted to extend the apologies of Rick Burdoff from RK Midway. He was intending to be here tonight to help present this. Unfortunately, there was a death of a very close family member last night, and so he was not able to attend, but he does extend his apologies. Again, I'm going to go through some of these analyses a little bit quickly because I think we've seen them before, but just locating the site halfway between St. Paul and Minneapolis, and then the airport is to the south. Also on a major transit-oriented line, the BRT on the Snelling Avenue line and the Green Line on University Avenue. And then in the middle of some very exciting neighborhoods and how it's sitting fallow now, and at the transit hub, how we can use this site to weave these neighborhoods together. The entire site is just short of 35 acres. The Met Council piece is 9.8 acres, and the balance is owned by RK Midway. And on the RK Midway parcel, there is approximately 326,000 square feet of existing retail space and parking, surface parking for about 1,700 cars. When we did an overlay of this site, just to get a sense of scale, it's approximately the size of 12 square blocks in downtown St. Paul. And then through previous studies that the city and the community had participated in on this site, on the superblock site, even before we started looking at this, this plan with the stadium, we established some design principles that we really wanted to adhere to in everything that we did. So the first and foremost was make this a transit-oriented development with pedestrians first, amending the street grid and the urban fabric. It's now a big superblock that you have to drive around, and engaging it more with the surrounding neighborhoods, but also making it more porous. Emphasizing public open spaces, which you'll see in the master plan, that whatever development we have, there are going to be open spaces that are accessible to residents from throughout the city and not just the immediate project. Creating a neighborhood of mixed uses, a 24/7 kind of mixed use. and making sure that the project had as many sustainable initiatives as was practicable, specifically as it related to stormwater management. So the uses that we are contemplating are everything that's involved in a vibrant neighborhood or city. Office, where people work; residential for living; retail, where they shop and go to gyms and do things that we think of outside of retail. The open space, entertainment, movies, bowling alleys, and things like that; and hospitality, hotel. We also wanted to make sure that when we looked at the open space that it was designed and accessible for 4 seasons. The Twin Cities are clearly a 4 seasons climate, and we wanted to make sure that whatever open space we had was not just a summer open space or a winter open space. And that the spaces could also be used for things like neighborhood and citywide events, especially as they relate to the stadium itself. Here are some photos of the existing site conditions. I'm sure all of you are intimately familiar with it. Some views from the surrounding streets: Pascal, St. Anthony, Snelling, and University. The Met Council piece on the south side is pretty much vacant. And then the major public transit and pedestrian entries off the 3 major arterials that are pedestrian or have public transit on them, which are University to the north with the LRT and the BRT running down Snelling, and then also pedestrian access off of Pascal. Primary vehicular entries, you'll see in the master plan, we're creating an east-west connector as a prolongation of Shields, hopefully trying to help the condition that exists at Spruce Tree and Snelling and University. And then integrating the development into a comprehensive bike network system. And really we got back to mending the grid and breaking down this block. If you look at this aerial, the surrounding neighborhoods have much smaller block sizes, and we really wanted to respect that and tie that back into the surrounding neighborhoods. This was a diagram that was done by a previous study, hinting that this really was what we needed to do, was break that down and try to reform some of the urban fabric through the street grid. And this is where we are with our master plan now. This is a roof view showing obviously the stadium in the middle and the south of the site, Shields Avenue coming through in an east-west connector, and then breaking the super block up into smaller blocks with north-south streets and east-west streets and multiple uses. This is a ground floor plan. The colors on the right show what the proposed uses are for each of these blocks. So one thing we wanted to do was make sure that all of the streets, all of the blocks had active uses on them. So the active uses, orange is retail, and when people hear retail, they think just stores, but also think of things like yoga studios and pet grooming stores and hair salons and things like that. There are a lot of services that come into retail, daycare and things like that. The other uses that would be on the ground floor are obviously the lobbies for office buildings up on these blocks here, where we're putting mostly office on Snelling to make it more of a corporate address and a business boulevard. Cinema, whether its lobby would be on the ground floor, but the bulk of the cinema would be up in the air because it doesn't really have much activity around the block. There's a health club on this block as well. Same thing, where the health club needs a large plate, but generally they have a few windows and a small door. Hotel over on this block, so this would be their lobby, and then there's residential built over these 2 blocks here. We'll see it stacked up a little more clearly. This is the current site, and you can see that it is rather underutilized, especially the Met Council piece, a sea of 1,700 parking spaces and the 325,000 square feet of 1-story retail. And then what we did was we dropped and modeled the master plan, what it could look like on that same super block, with a large public space opening up University Avenue and having the stadium at the forefront of that. There are some other public spaces that we'll go through later. These are residential blocks, retail on the ground floor, hotel, 2 hotels on this block here, And then office towers on Snelling, again with retail on the ground floor. The cinema would be up here with a lobby overlooking the green, health club on this block, health or club or gym on this block here, and some surface parking that we talked about earlier on the southeast corner. This shows theoretically how these buildings could be stacked up with their uses. When we talk about mixed-use developments, the neighborhood is mixed use, but actually some of these buildings are mixed use as well. So the colors are the blue, the lighter blue are the office uses, the darker blue is the cinema, the lavender is the gym. The parking is kind of sandwiched between the ground floor retail and these upper floors and would be hidden so it didn't look like a garage. The orange is all the retail that's on the ground floor, yellow is residential, and this darker purple is the hotel use. And then of course you can see there's open space here. We have another open space you'll see in another view on this corner of Snelling and St. Anthony, some open space over here, and then a plaza at the corner of University and Snelling at the transit hub. These are the approximate heights of these buildings. Again, there's no defined program, so this is just assuming what the program might be and how the heights could stack up. And this shows how the blocks would be divided and their size. If you recall, at the beginning I said the site was about 35 acres. We're proposing about 4.2 acres of open space, the largest one being this one on University, 2.6 acres, another 1.2 acres at St. Anthony and Snelling, half an acre, a little shy of half an acre over here in the southeast corner, and then a plaza at the corner of University and Snelling. The new streets in the neighborhood add up to about 8.3 acres. And then the stadium itself, this block that the stadium is on, is almost 8 acres. So the development parcels, which out of this whole 35 acres, are now down to about 12 acres, or just a little bit more than a third of the total block is where the actual bulk of the development goes. This shows on each of these blocks, to match that diagram that I showed with the heights and the massing, what the proposed program would be on each of the blocks. It doesn't mean that they're all going to stay exactly on the blocks, but the studies that are being done for traffic and environmental studies contemplating this, and it's about 1 million square feet of office, about 420,000 square feet of retail, and that includes the cinema, the health club, and entertainment, about 620 residential units, and a little over 400 rooms in the 2 hotels, for a total of about 4,600 parking spaces on the entire superblock. That's in comparison to the 1,700 that are there now and the 331,000 square feet of retail that's there now. And then we really wanted to concentrate on what these open spaces would be, because these, we think, are the center of the new neighborhood. So, oops, I'm sorry. So we started almost naming them just so we could refer to something. These names are just theoretical and could be changed. We have 2 large green areas that also include plazas that could flex and become one entire public space. We'll talk about the streets and how they can be shut down and how they're designed to function as pedestrian-only streets. And then some shops along the side of it that we really are imagining cafes and restaurants that overlook the green. Taking a look at Snelling and how it can go from an arterial to a boulevard type setting with wider sidewalks, street trees, a median, and then obviously street wall with shops and cafes here in the office lobbies. United Champion Plaza was just the entry when you're coming from the south. Also, connecting to the neighborhood down here. We know the neighborhood spent a lot of time on this parcel over here working with MnDOT, and we wanted to have complementary green space on both sides. And then it's part of the boulevard looking at how we can create a wider opening plaza at the transit hub. So these are some what we call inspiration photos, or examples of how we envision these spaces to be planned and programmed, but really becoming something a little bit more civic here. Our space is much larger than this, but imagine the stadium at the head, the shops on the green, something more like that really respect the park-like setting on the lawn. using the lawn for passive uses, but also could be used for events. So you can see that here during event day. We're also looking at how the district and the neighborhood can work when you have 22,000 people in the stadium, and also on a night like tonight when there might not be 22,000 people here, so it's still very vibrant, and how these spaces can be used. And we wanted to look at the size of this again. We always look at size because people have a hard time, I have a hard time still, of understanding scale. So earlier I showed you that this site is about the size of 12 square blocks in downtown St. Paul. So here we started looking at what our space was in comparison to some of the public spaces that are pretty well known in the Twin Cities. So this is Rice Park in St. Paul, PV Plaza in Minneapolis, and Mears Park in St. Paul, and you can see the approximate dimensions on them, and then you can see their actual areas, and then ours is the largest of them. It's 2.6 acres, of which we envision about 1.8 acres would be green space. And what does that mean? Urban parks generally have a mixture of hardscape and landscape, and that's what we're envisioning here, where the hardscape could be plazas and used for events, and then you have landscape, obviously, that's more park-like, just like Rice Park downtown, for example. And we also look at this project. This is a project I worked on in Ottawa, and it had a lot of similarities. Some of you had heard me talk about this before. It was in an urban context. It was mostly surface parking. It's anchored by, in this case, it's a Canadian Football League stadium, but this was all parking lot, and this was their open space. Most of their open space is in form of hardscape, a more urban form, but this is a mixed-use development that opened a couple of years ago. You can see it right here, which has office, retail, residential, a lot of the same uses we're looking at here. And then looking at how we can change even the public realm on the edge of the superblock. So earlier I mentioned Snelling and how we can transform it more to a boulevard with wider sidewalks, the built form that establishes the street wall, street trees. This is really for some inspiration for the corner, what we're calling United Championship Plaza at St. Anthony and Snelling. Again, some kind of landscape that's respective of the local climate and local horticulture, but then some plaza areas for gathering. Here we have some views of existing University Avenue and just looking at what this is going to mean. And so we did some sketches to model what these buildings might look like on here. So this is from Pascal looking toward the west, toward Snelling. And here's what it would be modeled as if it were all built according to that. So this is the retail on the ground floor with the residential buildings here. The big lawn would be in the middle there. You obviously wouldn't see it from this angle, and that would be the office building at the corner of University and Snelling. Here's a view of Snelling Avenue. This is right at Shields. So this is Big Top Liquors, this is Shields, and you can see the light right there at Spruce Tree that goes into the current center and across right there, closer to University. Sorry, this is a Google image, so it is a little skewed. And here's where we're proposing a wider sidewalk on there, the street tree. This is all, we've been working closely with the redone Snelling geometry that includes the BRT stop that's actually already built adjacent to the site and where that lay-by would be for the buses, but really trying to give more pedestrian space here and then have a buffer area along the travelway with street trees, your light posts, what we call a furniture zone, to make this feel more comfortable to walk on, and then obviously activating it with ground floor uses. This is the view that you see right now looking directly into the middle of the site from University. And this is with the large open space right here. This is the residential on this block. Actually, these are the shops in the green. The residential is back here with the retail on the ground floor and the stadium in the background. And then we look to try and just give an aerial of what that might be. So this is a theoretical view that you really can't see right now, obviously, but it's pretty much straight up in the air right from Snelling and University looking toward the southeast. And creating that public civic space in the middle. These are the restaurants, the shops in the green, the residential and the hotel over here and the stadium over here. So this would be from one of the floors up in the office if they were built this way. And we started looking at some preliminary traffic patterns and street widths as well, and this all needs to be vetted still with traffic engineers in the city, but creating a main east-west street through the mid-block lined up with shields, smaller streets that are right in, right out off of University and Spruce Tree, making it a right in, right out here. Obviously a perimeter street around the stadium, and then we're going to look at how we can improve pedestrian safety, especially at this intersection right here. This free flow right is a little bit problematic. And then we started looking at what these streets might look like and how wide they need to be. We don't want to make them any wider than they need to be. We know we have to have cars. There are going to be cars around for a long time, but we wanted to plan for bike lanes and wider sidewalks and not pave the entire site. So this is Snelling here, which just shows 3 lanes, the wider sidewalk with the furniture zone and potentially a median. And here again is an example of a boulevard type streetscape. This street right here would be a secondary street inside the development. It's marked up here, so one of those smaller north-south or east-west streets where you have 2 driving lanes, on-street parking, the furniture zone, and still a wide sidewalk to create a pedestrian environment throughout the district. This is a potential section for the east-west, the Shields extension, where we have bike lanes on both sides. We're showing 4 driving lanes only in this section where we're taking it right here because there will be a signal, so there will be some queuing, but we expect that as it gets into the district here, it would go back down to 1 lane in each direction with potential left turn lanes at the intersection to keep it narrower. Again, we have the wide sidewalks, and then on the bottom we looked at how we can also look at the edge of Pascal, where we can set our buildings back far enough to allow for a 15-foot sidewalk, a parking lane on the southbound side of Pascal, bike lane, then there's the existing 3 driving lanes, the middle one is a turn lane, a bike lane on the other side, and then when the other side of Pascal gets developed, they could mimic that same sidewalk. And then we want to look at how are these streets going to work. Earlier I said we're going to have some days where we're going to have 20,000 plus people coming into the neighborhood in addition to all of the other people that are living and working there. And then we have days in the winter and nights like tonight where those people aren't going to be there. So we're looking at some precedent that's been successfully implemented around the world where we call them curbless streets. So when there's traffic going through there, it's still very clear, but you can also have pedestrian only and close off the streets. And we're working with the traffic engineers to make sure during events we can close off the bulk of the streets within the superblock. And then I mentioned earlier, connecting the bike route in is really what we want to do into the greater network. We're not showing how bikes will come off of this, but we think that the east-west connection, connecting into the existing city network, is probably our biggest and most important connection into the network. And then obviously there would be smaller laneways to get to the other blocks. And we're looking to see, especially on this east-west, to have a separated bike lane here so it's completely safe and separate from vehicular traffic. And as I mentioned earlier, we're looking at a lot of initiatives going forward and how the site gets developed in terms of sustainability. Some of it will be incorporated into the buildings, but primarily in site work, probably one of the biggest ways to incorporate sustainability is in good stormwater practices for quality and quantity. And so we're looking at what we can do to incorporate that, whether it's through rain gardens or reusing some of the rainwater, holding it in cisterns and reusing it on site for irrigation so it doesn't run off the site. And we're working with the city who has established a task force on some of those initiatives that we can implement into the site. Okay, and with that, I'm going to turn it over to Dr. McGuire.
Thank you all. Thanks for coming tonight. But quickly just go through a number of pictures, some of which you have undoubtedly seen already. But I'll take you through in some of the thinking and logic around these. This is a view of the stadium, which is designed at about 20,000 seats. It is taken or visually from the north off of University looking due south. And John just talked about this and how it interacts with two contiguous large green spaces leading up to this. The structure itself, and we'll look at a couple pictures here, different times of day or night with the ability through LED lighting to provide a little bit of interest to it. Here is really from the sort of west-northwest, where you can look back with one of the entrances here on the side. Here is that front entrance we just looked at, an elevated plaza. Again, different times, little lighting, and then here is basically the same view from the east-northeast, looking back to the west, some of these office buildings as is laid out earlier. And then here from this elevated plaza looking back out over the green space with the streets that John alluded to here, and the smaller one cutting through, and this right down here, difficult to see, but actually being the section that goes through running across Shields from west to east or east to west. And then a view or two from the road. This is I-94 going west, looking up on the knoll. The total height here is about 70 feet above ground, smaller than many of the buildings, but we think appropriately proportioned to it. Here's the interior. The real hallmarks here are that the seats, the most distant seat from the pitch itself, or the green, is 125 feet. So all of this becomes very intimate, fairly steep. Roof structure all the way around, we'll see that again in a minute, and seating around. This actually, well, you can see one section down here. Here's another one with a large supporter section and a video board. Again, same basic layout all the way through. And here from above, showing the roof, which comes in not all the way over all of the seats, but a significant amount serving multiple purposes, one of which is to keep the noise in and reflect it back, which is part of the experience in the better stadiums. Another one, of course, is to downgrade the light and keep the light in. It's all interior LED lighting, as you can see. Here are a couple other pictures just looking at this side view with the roof coming out the ground here, and then we laid these, as I recall, this was target field over here, and you can see how it fits in. The one that's probably more relevant for you is XL, and we've shown this before. But the whole height of this, much less than XL is right now, and also narrower than XL, with the seats virtually at all levels closer to the pitch, to the actual playing field in those facilities. And then another view, this one with and we haven't really determined this finalized yet as to what all the materials would be that show up there. This one happens to be basically the same material as the sides. And if I go back to this, let me just talk about a couple of other things. So the material itself is PTFE, it's a mesh. In this case, it is a translucent mesh. You can sort of see through it with light. The mesh is at about 1/8 of an inch, and it is stretched taut over a structure, which allows for the rhythmic flow ideas here, which are paramount to this, and the idea of picking up on the rivers and lakes of Minnesota, and also the ability to light and get into some of the nightlife. So those are the real features of the stadium as we have it laid out right now.
All right, well, great, thank you. And I think it was mentioned, so right now we'll go in, we got about 15 minutes for questions from the audience. You can ask, Dr. McGuire is here, we have S9, we have, I think Representative Moran is still around. I know she might have to get back to the legislature, and others. So we'll have that. And then the important thing is please take the opportunity to engage in some of the table conversations. We have the tables that are centered around stadium concepts, master plan concepts, community character and public life, how do we get around the site, the types of uses we're looking for, jobs and businesses, stormwater and public art, and the overall vision in kind of a wide open general conversation table as well. So please take advantage of those opportunities. It is very meaningful for us to have the feedback from folks and the opportunity to engage you in conversation. And with that, we'll take some questions. And I might as well get out of the way. Tom, why don't we start with you?
Great idea. So can you explain why the city council voted before the design group, the citizens committee, had even finished its work?
The citizens group, particularly, it's the community advisory committee and the technical advisory committee, is really about the site as we lay out here, where people will have an opportunity to weigh in on these, again, the topics that we have here. But in order to advance the project, in order to be able to get an agreement that we could take to the state legislature, in order to be able to say that we're moving forward, not every detail is completed, but the broad parameters around the use agreement with the team have been put forward. The general agreement about what the public space around the stadium, at least as it lays out here, and there's room for conversations around that as we go forward. But we had to get an agreement forward so that we could say to the legislature, we are in a path to getting ground broken in the summer.
That does contradict the formation, what was said when the group was formed.
Not at all. I think we've been very clear that we needed to have some agreements in context before the legislative session got started, which is why we had the hearing on March 2nd. But again, that doesn't negate the conversations that we're having here. And quite frankly, a lot of that was already informed by the conversations that we've had from the conversations that we've had previously and the work that the Community Advisory Committee has done. Way in the back, ma'am.
Yes, I would like to know whether or not the environmental review will consider the impact on birds on this stadium. It looks transparent, it looks like sky, and it looks like a death trap, just like the US Bank Stadium in
This is
Minneapolis.
bird safe material. It is not transparent. It's translucent, but it isn't the same as the glass wall at US Bank Stadium. I don't know if Dr. McGuire, you want to add anything?
Sure. Good question. We're obviously very sensitive, or if you know anything about my background, I am very sensitive to this. The most recent efforts around bird safety in buildings were done by the Audubon Society in Portland. They published a report in 2012. It has many variables, including building height, use of glass, for instance, less than 10%. This building is actually less than 7% overall glass. And the use of mesh and translucent material with a mesh that's less than 4 inches. This is 1/8 of an inch. So we're pretty comfortable. We've met with the Audubon Society once already to do this proactively, not in reaction to something else. This is not the Vikings Stadium or US Bank Stadium.
It looks like, I understand the St. Paul is a bird-friendly city. I hope that continues. The office buildings for the architects, they look like they're all glass too. So I just have to...
Yeah, well, I think within reason, the architects will also be sensitive to these issues as much as one can. Obviously, no one wants buildings that are solid brick or concrete without any light, and there has to be a balance there. But in this case, at least on the stadium, which was your original question, we're quite sensitive to this, and I think we're on top of it.
I want to acknowledge that Councilmember Dai Tao is here. Thank Dai for being present. And next question.
Hi, I'm Mark Hughes. I'm one of the co-chairs of the Mayor's Committee for this building in St. Paul. Hope you all can hear me. I have two quick questions and concerns. One is, as far as the global big picture, when the building process gets going and the final architectural plans get approved by the city council and it goes to city council, I want to be sure that the accessibility piece is included, because in St. Paul, I've been around a long time, as you can tell by my gray hair, but St. Paul does a fine job of exceeding accessibility code, I believe. And there are folks at the Minnesota State Council here tonight, and they have an office in St. Paul. If there's any question by the owner of the team, the architectural firm, anybody like that there, the Minnesota State Council would be glad to help, and we have folks in the city of St. Paul who do it. I just want to be sure that's covered. My second point is, I felt that when I attended the meetings over at American National Bank, there wasn't a lot of diversity included, and I felt it could have been stronger on that. That's it. Thank you.
Thank you on those points. And I think as we put the Community Advisory Committee, we were really trying to get a broad representation and really have all voices be heard. And so, you know, at least as the committee itself was constituted, I think we did a pretty good job of that. With respect to accessibility, one of the things I'm proudest of is we set the gold standard at CHS Field in terms of accessibility. You know, we've been recognized for that. I think that is if Mr. or Dr. McGuire wants to speak to that as well, but I do think that we've kind of established how well we can do that, and I think we're intending to. Yeah, no, thank you for your work. Appreciate that. We'll go over here.
Yes, I have a question. I have two questions, basically.
Can you just make sure people in the back can hear you as well?
I have two questions. Basically, it's about parking, as well as we live on the north side of Sherburne Avenue. Right now, we're having a hard time parking with the light rail already embedded there. And when you're talking about 20,000 seat capacity, but you got 1,700 available parking.
Right.
And we're looking at doing a permit parking. How is that state going to handle that?
Yeah. And was there a second part of that?
Yes. The second question is, everything is tax exempt. Are the homeowners or business owners going to feel a tax increase for recyclables or anything like that?
No. So let me start with the first one, and also I want to acknowledge Councilmember Prince is here too. Thank you for joining us. So the first part of the question is with respect to parking. That is a concern.
Permit parking for the people that are one
Right.
block away from there.
Right. So let me just expand it to parking generally in the area, not only as it relates to game day, but any additional businesses or office uses or entertainment uses that come into that. We will be conducting an extensive parking survey and study of the area, as well as a traffic study, so that we will have a plan going forward.
They've done permit parking over off of Grand Avenue because of the businesses. Why can't we have it in our area?
So that will be a question that we can ask as part of this process. But if some people like permit parking, some people don't. But the important thing is that we make sure we understand what the parking needs are here, what additional parking capacity we need in addition to what we already have. We have Spruce Tree Ramp. If you go a block or two to the west of that, we have the Health
There's
East.
street parking all around on our streets.
Yeah, but a person could save money. They're going to park a few blocks.
Right. So absolutely hear you on that question, and that will absolutely be one of the things that we will look at, and whether there's specific restrictions with respect to game day parking or how we manage that. We want this to blend in with the neighborhood. We don't want this to be a state fair atmosphere, where people are.
Well, we're already having problems because of the light rail. All the businesses have
Yeah,
had their parking.
so that we will absolutely be looking at those factors. The second, sir, part of the question, remind me?
Everything is tax exempt, but I want to know if the homeowners or the business owners
So
feel the taxes.
one of the things I want to just kind of reiterate, the land that we're talking about here it's been tax exempt, certainly as long as I've been around. And what we haven't had is the full valuation of the surrounding acreage of the Midway Shopping Center. If you look at the build out, and this isn't something that's going to be built out tomorrow or the next day, this is a multi-year opportunity, and it will be built in stages. But as we build this out, I think the estimates at one point were 12 to 13 times the value on this site than it is currently valued at, and that will be the tax base that we'll be able to draw off with the new businesses and the new buildings, the new housing, et cetera, that's developed here. So this is a huge boon to the tax base. It's not a drain from it. It's actually taking property that's already tax exempt, but using it in a way that catalyzes development on the rest of the site that will be a significant spur.
Hi, thanks. My name is Nick Hoare. I'm with Higher Minnesota. Considering the public discussion and the public money that's going to be in this, the tax breaks and the discussion about jobs and infrastructure investments, and the success of the Viking Stadium, can you talk about why the minority and women hiring rules will not apply to the construction of this stadium?
Well, let me clarify. So in the use agreement, we had some broad language in there. Since that language has been incorporated, first of all, a couple of things. The people that are building the Viking Stadium that also built TCF are Mortensen, who are second to none in achieving the minority hiring goals that have been set out. But we will, and I've talked with Dr. McGuire just this afternoon to make sure that we are going to bring those same goals into this project as well. And so that issue has been important to us. It's certainly everything that we've done in the city, where there's direct city money going into it, or whether it's CHS Field or even the public realm pieces of this thing. But we'll also have that language in there as it relates to the specific building of the facility itself. And with Mortensen at the helm, I'm absolutely confident that we are going to not only hit those marks, we're going to do hopefully do it even better.
So will that language be added to the agreement then?
We'll figure. I don't know exactly what the process is, but we've had that conversation, and these are values that we all share, and want to make sure that the people that are working on the site are reflective of it as well. So I'm going to work my way backwards.
Again, Finsa, my question is, what is being done to help preserve the single-family feel of the neighborhoods in my house?
Thank you.
I'm feeling being dwarfed by all the new apartment buildings being built along University, which is good in one way, but as Hamlin University keeps building, I'm feeling squeezed in between the two.
Yeah, well, and I do appreciate. So the question is just how do we maintain the neighborhood feel, and particularly with the single-family homes on Sherburne, Charles, Edmond, Thomas, et cetera, how do we make sure that we don't overshadow all of that? And I think it was certainly a large part of the conversation that we had in the area plans and the kind of the build out and the zoning work that we did around the build out of the light rail, because we knew the light rail construction certainly was going to increase desirability. We saw that on Hiawatha corridor. Once the light rail line went through the Hiawatha corridor, there was a lot of buildings that went out. I think where we did it better was we did a lot of that work with our planning staff to really kind of try to figure out what is the right balance. So we didn't just allow, with the exception of a couple of areas like this one in particular on the intersection of Snelling and University, just unlimited heights. I know this was an important conversation that the council had to try to keep the scale of the buildings along University Avenue so we could take advantage of the light rail and increase densities, which is important, but doing it in a way that doesn't overshadow the neighborhoods, and we're trying to protect that. So we'll continue to work on those issues and continue to have that conversation. But we do, I used to live on Edmond in Victoria for many years, and do appreciate that scale of neighborhood. Like more density on University Avenue, but not at the cost of the neighborhood. So we are trying to strike that balance. Sir, we'll go here, and then this young man back here.
I'm Daniel. Definitely, I would like to see some type of affordable supermarket on Snelling University. And so you take the train, get off at Snelling University, and walk just a few meters and get inside Cub Foods. And when you get out, it's right next to the train.
Thank you. Just a question about an affordable grocery store. The Cub Foods, I don't know how the station is a little ways away from the Cub Foods, so it's not immediately there. That could be something that we'll talk with the developers about what that might look like. So I'm going to go there.
I have a question for Dr. McGuire.
Stand up, doctor.
So a lot of the people in the neighborhood are complaining about the stadium being built during game nights and game days, and there'll be a lot of noise coming from the stadium, and the rushing to the game and from the game, and that might cause a lot of noise and racket, and they're a little frustrated about that. And what would be your response to that, and what would you do about it?
Well, I think the question is, what about noise around game time in particular? And I think the response in terms of what to do about it is to plan appropriately for that particular problem. And that is a sort of a broad set of issues. One of them, part and parcel with the development, is to create an atmosphere and a place that people want to come, not just 15 minutes before a game. The concept of everybody arriving, running in the stadium, and then immediately leaving is far different than having an environment where people come progressively over a multi-hour period because there are other things to do. Restaurants to go to, places to shop, spend time. So try to slow it down, and at the same time leave slowly. And these are situations that occur all over the world, and London is a great place where you go see some of these massive stadiums and you have the same situation and people spread it out. Relative to noise, specifically of a game, I think the design in particular is done to help alleviate a lot of that problem. We actually want the noise to stay in. The roof is no mean amount of money spent for that process. In fact, that roof between the two amounts to give or take somewhere between $10 and $20 million just for the flat part. So that is really put in there to help mitigate a lot of that. By the same token, having a skin all the way around it helps to keep the noise in as well. So I think it's put in the design process, and obviously we'll still work on tweaking that. Thank you.
First of all, can we give this young man a round of applause? We need. It looks like you got some friends here too. Let's give his friends a round of applause for coming out to the meeting.
My name is Tim Mangan. I'm the past community council for this area over here. And I've been through all these stations. I talked to these people. No one has been in my area, which is direct from the stadium. I've dealt with all this stuff before with the Snelling Bridge, light rail. What's going to go on with the noise? What's the environmental impact for us? Our only access is Pascal Avenue. We had to deal with Igo Road when you open it up. People from the south side understand your hell that you dealt with before. We deal with your hell now. Now we're going to deal with this hell. The problem is, what are you going to do for us? None of you guys, I've talked to all of you guys here. No one's coming into our neighborhood at all. By the way, it was Snelling Park. You redistricted us and you renamed it Union Park. It's known as Union Park. No, my deed says Snelling Park. So, none of you guys have come and addressed any of us in my neighborhood. Why is that? I want to know.
So,
You're going to have 20,000 people coming over. The only, like I said, the only egress I have is Pascal. Snelling, I have watched people get crushed by vehicles. In my hand, bloodied all over the place. I know what Snelling's like. It's horrible. You guys gonna, and what I don't understand is, that's a state highway there. You got Snelling and University is the most congested area in the Midwest. It's been known for over 50 years. Sir, you and I are the same age. I grew up here too. I'm 53 years old. I've been in St. Paul. I'm sorry I sound agitated, but none of you guys, all you've given me is lip service, no answers. What are you going to do about us? Are you going to take care of us? You didn't take care of us with widening the road?
all right, sir.
Shut down the area.
Sir, I get your question. Thank you very much. I appreciate that, and I appreciate the concerns. And I think any time that you have a development, particularly of this size and scale, there are a lot of issues. I think that we've done an exceptional process of reaching out to the neighborhood. We've had the president of the Union Park District Council is a co-chair of the Community Advisory Committee. Members of the Community Council have been part of this process from the beginning. We've had a lot of conversations. We've had multiple community meetings. We've had an opportunity for people to weigh in. We are continuing to look at the options relative to the traffic study. But I think if you look at the design for this site, the widening of the sidewalks right now, the sidewalk between on Snelling Avenue on the west side of the site isn't a very walkable or appealing place. With this plan, as John was going through it, you saw widening of the sidewalks, making it more accessible, really kind of consistent with our 880 goals, which was to make our public spaces and our public places more accessible. And so I understand the concerns. I understand the issues that are being raised here, but I think that the opportunity that is presented here to take a piece of land that, quite frankly, is an embarrassment, that looks like a bombed out third world country, and turn it into a vibrant place and help spur the development on the north side of the site is what we as a city owe ourselves to do to take advantage of that. So we have had a lot of community participation. We have had representation from the district council system at the table, and we're going to continue to solicit and seek that. So I think we have time for one more question.
I'm not completely sure I understood what this gentleman was getting at, but I've been a resident in this neighborhood for 26 years. I'm
Just a little louder.
one block off Snelling, and I travel north-south Snelling multiple times year-round. The traffic the last 5 years has been horrible. We put up with 3 years of light rail. I can't remember what the middle summer was.
Do you want to
And
use the
last
microphone?
summer-
They're having a hard time hearing you.
All right.
Oops, I think I'll leave it there because somebody else has got a mic.
I looked at this slide stuff tonight and tried to listen, but I have lived in this neighborhood 26 years. I live one block off Snelling, travel north and south multiple times a day, year-round. And the Snelling traffic is horrendous. We have been very patient with 3 years of light rail. Middle summer that I can't remember what it was, and last year tearing up Snelling from south of the 94 bridge going up towards Hamlin University. What relief do we get? What can we expect? And then when everything's finished, lovely as it is, it's going to be crowded, especially on game days. What are we supposed to do to get to and from in our daily lives?
Thank you for that. So again, I think a couple of things. First of all, as we build this out, we build a community that has green space, that has wide walkable sidewalks, that takes advantage of the investment that has been made in light rail and the A-line bus rapid transit. It is our goal to drive as much of the folks going to the stadium as possible onto the public transportation that we already have. If you look at cities like Portland, Oregon, they've had great success with over 50% of the people taking that. If you take that, I'm going to do math in my head, which is a dangerous thing for me. But if you take 50% of the people coming to the stadium, and then you average a little over 3 per car that would actually be driving to that, you're talking about potentially 3,000 cars after most games are going to be starting at 7 o'clock at night. So after rush hour traffic is done. So we still have to do the modeling around that. We still have to do the modeling around parking and how people will move in and out of this, where they'll be coming from, east, west, north, south, et cetera, to maximize that flow. And we really want to do that so it doesn't burden the neighborhood. But you're talking about an intersection that during rush hour on any given day has way more vehicles going through it than would happen potentially after hours as we approach game time. So that's not definitive. Those are still questions that we're looking at and information that we're gathering. But we're very sensitive to that. We want this to be an amenity for the neighborhood, as CHS feel. Now CHS, there's no question that Lower Town is more vibrant and there's a lot more people down there. Some people liked it. I literally remember having a conversation with a person that was living down there, and she said, "Well, I like living in downtown because it's nice and quiet." Well, that's a different, and this is a major destination. There's a reason why they call this the Midway. And I think as we look to figure out how we continue to build out our city, make it an attractive place for people to live, to work, take advantage of the infrastructure investments that we have made in it. And trust me, the congestion from light rail and the construction through that was 3 years of hell. But now that work has been done, and hopefully we'll build off that. So thank you. I know there are more questions than we have time for. Hopefully some of those questions can be answered at the different tables. We greatly appreciate that, and I'm going to finish this off by turning it over to Jonathan for further instruction. And thank you all for being out tonight.
Keep the Q&A going, Mr. Mayor.
So there are a total of 8 tables. There are 16 tables. The 8 on my left here and the 8 on my right are the same. So feel free. The same topics are repeated either side. We're going to have city staff here for another half hour, 45 minutes. So please stop by. We're asking for particular feedback, but you can grab any of us on any of the topics. But we hope you'll stop by and tell us what you think. Thanks.